Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's been a little bit. We are back here at the Junior All-Star Podcast. We have a special guest today. I have Mike Peden. He has been helping us out here at Junior All-Star, and he is now a contributor for this AAU season. And guess what, Mike? It's July. That's recruiting Christmas. So we are going to do a video today about kicking off, kind of a July kickoff, talk about what we've seen, maybe preview who to look for this coming July for coaches and for players. But first, I want to introduce yourself and let people know where they can find you.
Yes, if you haven't found me already, I can be found at the Mike Peden on Twitter or Instagram. I've been involved with Junior All-Star since October and then got to hit up the AAU beat back in May. I've been doing that for a couple of months. So I know it's been fun to reintegrate myself in the basketball community. It's been a great primer for the upcoming high school season. But yep, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you can find me on all those channels. And for those of you who recognize me from my broadcasts, I'll let you know that I plan on bringing those back so you can follow my YouTube channel, TSB Television, when we get to the winter season, and I will have full-length broadcast coverage of high school games around the metro.
You are a busy man. Thank you for taking your time and doing this, because otherwise it's just me talking to myself, and I don't know if anyone wants to hear that.
I've been there, trust me. I don't want to listen to myself for that long.
So you've gotten out to some tournaments. Kind of, what are some of your opening or first thoughts kind of on the Minnesota AAU season or overall the tournaments you've gotten to?
So I started with the state prelims. Now I covered Forest Lake, and for those who aren't familiar with the prelims, they have those at two different sites. So Eric covered the prelims in Bloomington. I handled the prelims at Forest Lake. Forest Lake may not have the A-listers that Bloomington does, but you got to see some hidden gems, if you will. And so one of the first players that I saw who made an impression on me was Naomi Cruchon from Prep Uramin, who ended up winning the Division II state title in the 9th grade class, the 2024s, if I'm correct. Wicked fast defender. I think she had 4 steals in 9 minutes, and I'm going, how does this kid keep her motor running? But I noticed every time she took the floor, and even at an all-star exhibition type event that I covered last month, whenever she takes the floor, the intensity picks up and good things happen for her team. So that was one of the first players to make an impression. As we moved along, I'd have to say the North Tartan EYBL group, I saw them a couple of times at the state tournament semis, and then I got to see them in Summer Jam. They lost a close one in the championship to All Iowa Attack, but Tessa Johnson's return reminded me of when I covered her at St. Michael Albertville against Hopkins once, and she was just making plays throughout. She is a quick guard who has one of the longest strides I've ever seen out of somebody. She can cover a lot of ground. That's another athlete who has left a positive impression. Mara Braun, also one of the smoothest players I've seen. I'm starting to understand why she got a lot of hype in her early years. And not that I thought she was overrated. So when I say that, it's only because I haven't seen some of these players enough to make that assessment myself. And then, I know we were talking, I probably can't go on without mentioning Olivia Olson. We talked about this before we started recording. Summer Jam. She missed the first game because she was flying back from her national team tryout. And then we find out she made the 16U team. So she'll get to take up the national circuit, much like Paige Beckers did, which I think is really cool. Not many Minnesota kids get that opportunity. Well, she comes back, helps lead a comeback in the 9th grade bracket in the Summer Jam, the Round Lake. That was the top 9th grade division. Her team was trailing Nebraska Elite by 11, if I recall. She helps lead them to a comeback win in the semis. Didn't play all that well in the final, but what impresses me about Olivia is how much she maintains her concentration, whether she plays well or not. It helps to have Katie Vasika as your teammate on Minnesota Fury 2024 UAA. But with Olson, I noticed that whether or not her shot is falling, she looks to make plays. Getting back on defense, helping out, setting up on assists, things like that, using her reach to get deflections, blocks, all of that. That's what I look for out of players, because you're going to run into games where Sometimes, like Brittany Griner last night, hit 10 of 10 to start the game with the Mercury and Lynx. There are other times, like Diana Taurasi, for example, in that same game, or Olivia Olson. She's been feast or famine, where you can't hit the broadside of a barn, and there's nothing wrong with your mechanics. It's just that for whatever reason, that arc is not perfectly aligned. What do you do in that situation? And seeing Olivia a couple of times where she didn't light up the scoreboard, but she was still active, still making plays and contributing in a positive way to her team reminds me a lot of Paige Beckers. I'm certainly not comparing the two because Olivia is going to forge her own path, but what the two have in common is how well they stay focused when things aren't going their way. They look to get others involved. They look to get that stop. So they never get frustrated. And I think that feeds into their teams. So Olivia Olson, to me, has made the strongest impression. I hadn't seen her play in person up until the AAU season, but now I understand why she's getting a lot of attention this early.
Oh yes, I think it was either last summer or this summer. I made the comparison. I said they're kind of like her and Katie are kind of the Minnesota version of having Brianna Stewart and Elena Deladon on the same team, with the length, the shooting, the ball handling. I'm like, if one's not going, the other one's cutting for backdoor. Or you're having Olivia dive and get it. Katie's hitting a deep three, and then they both can block shots, and it's entertaining to watch because it's so, and they're such good teammates too. They're both willing, even in close games, they're willing to drive and kick out to an open teammate, whether, sometimes people are like, you need to take that shot, but they have a better shot. They're willing to give up good shots for great shots. And they're good teammates. They're great kids. They're both going to have, they're both are poised to have continued fantastic high school careers. Katie has went on to South Dakota, though she's a South Dakota one now. And Olivia at Benilde St. Margaret's, who, she's just scratching the surface. And I think, like you said, she's not to compare them. She could have a similar path in terms of national exposure that, Paige had, but just a fantastic kid. I said one of the kids I would talk about, that we both have got a chance to see. I talk about her a lot. She doesn't really like the attention, so I'll keep it brief. Kennedy Sanders is fantastic. There's nothing that guard can't do. She can float. She floaters. She's playing defense. She's getting rebounds. She gives up her body. The kid's on the ground half the time. Like, she looks like me at Lifetime half the time, just falling. But I'm falling on my own. She's getting bodied. So I'm like,
you're saying is she's more graceful when she's falling. and not to interrupt, but to add to that point, I saw her play once at Summer Jam, and I've seen her throughout the years. I've done some projects and I've covered some Chaska games, but how she can fit through tight spaces. It doesn't matter how small a lane is. If she thinks there's an opening, she'll go through it. But she's just as prolific when it comes to distributing, and she can hit the three too. So her slashing ability, I'd say, is almost unparalleled.
She blazes the trail. Sometimes you're looking, you're like, there might be indents in the court, because she is just getting there. And her ability to keep her eyes on the basket, and whether taller defenders, shorter defenders, she does a really good job of using the glass, making sure she's going to put it up and give it a chance to either go in or give her, it's such a soft touch too. Mallory can go, higher, can go around there. Her AAU teammates, they can go under. It gives it such an opportunity to be successful. So we won't brag on her too much because she hates the attention, but we can't go too far without talking about Kennedy. And her teammate, another one of her teammates, Abby Schubert. I've compared her, I said, kind of right now, a shorter version of Carly Wagner, just an absolute sniper. And I've tweeted it a few times. I said, if her feet are set, it's automatic. If her feet are set, whether close or not, if you give her that ability, you're risking that it's going to go in, and more times than not, it's going to go in. Piggybacking off, some of the lesser, or I guess you'd say some of the, diamonds in the rough, kids that aren't the well-known name kids, but still equally as good. One that I want to highlight, her name's Piper Carlson. She's from St. Louis, or St. Michael Albertville. I don't know why it just clicked with me, but there was a tournament I saw, the Summer Explosion, hosted by the Minnesota Suns. She looked like she was absolutely, she was without a question the best player on the court. She was getting rebounds, she was getting blocks, she was posting up physically and finishing in traffic among 2-3 defenders. She was also stepping out, hitting the three. She was just a fantastic player. And I even looked, I'm like, why haven't I seen this kid before? Like, you have seen her. And I'm like, whatever happened at that tournament, something clicked. And so Piper Carlson was, I said, if we're taking players to watch in July, all the ones that we mentioned, but make sure to get out to the Metro Stars. They're on the 2023. They're not Under Armour, Adidas. It's Adidas, right?
It's all right that they all the apparel companies just blur together.
Right. So I think she's Metro Stars 2023 team, but she actually plays a lot. One of her teammates is the sister to Liza so Lexi Carlin, and her sister was Liza. She plays a lot like the Carlin sisters. She has a lot of the similar big body, but can inside outside. Really impressive with that. And Mike, so some of the games you've seen, have there been any, would you say, just top level games, or one that really stood out to you and one that you're going to remember for a while?
I'd say several from the Summer Jam. What I loved about it, and I mentioned this, I brought this up with you and I tweeted this too, with most of the brackets, especially the tier 1 divisions, it was straight bracket format. So a mini NCAA tournament, if you wanted to advance in the championship round, you had to win your game. You didn't have a pool play to experiment, if you will. And that led to some intense competition. There were some blowouts, and that's going to happen when you have so many AAU teams coming together. It's no different than high school. Some are just at a higher level than others, but I'm pulling this up. I have to pull up some of the brackets because the 17U, the Lake Minnetonka, that was the tier 1 17U division. You had a photo finish between Essence Tip Hayes, a group from Florida with one of the top recruits in the nation, Janiah Barker, and FBC Real, who has one of the Hopkins kids, which is a rarity. A lot of the Hopkins kids stick together. Most of them play for Metro Stars, but a few have scattered. Maya Naji is one of them. And you saw a change in momentum in that game. Maya Naji had a terrific first half, contained Janiah Barker one-on-one, but in the second half, FBC ran out of gas a little bit, and Essence Tip Hayes fought through it. You had Sydney Bowles, who was clutch at the free throw line, and I mentioned this, it's not the sexiest way to score, right, but if a player does well from the line, I'm going to note it because scouts, coaches, they're looking at that. It may not make highlight reels, but those are free points, and that matters. Toy Erline comes to mind. She plays 2 grades up on her son's team, and I think in the kickoff, or maybe it was state. Actually, it was state, where she hit like 10 or 11 free throws. So I pay attention to that. We may not put that on the highlight reels as much, but if you're hitting at the line consistently, those points matter. So you had Essence Tip Hayes work their way back, and they ended up winning that game. And then the second day, the quarterfinals, the Metro Stars came up a bit short against All Iowa Attack. And that All Iowa team, I don't cover Iowa as much because I live in Minnesota, so right, I don't get to see the Iowa teams. I think the only Iowa team I'd seen up until that point was Dowling Catholic and Caitlin Clark, which I'll never forget either, but that's another story. But All Iowa Attack, it looked like they were going to run away with it. Metro Stars couldn't buy a bucket, and Nunu Agara had the game of her life. I would say her best performance of the club season. She scored 21, and this All Iowa Attack team, they have a couple of strong post players in Hannah Stolke, and the other one, yeah,
I think they're both.
I can't remember the other one off my
Iowa too. I think they're both going to University of Iowa, if I remember correct.
It was Stolke. You know what? It was Stolke, and I have another monitor next to me, so you know what I'm gonna do? Hold that thought, because I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna pull up my reports because I'm like, wait, I don't. That's what's great about submitting them, is that you get to
keep them use them for.
You get to keep them. Yes, you get to keep them in the back burner here. Okay, where was it? Was it oh yes, that's what it was. So yes, it was Jada Giamfi. Those were the two that would try to stop Agara, and she wasn't having any of it. Stolke and Giamfi occasionally would beat her, but if that happened, Nunu would come up with 2 or 3 plays consistently. In fact, to start the game, Stolke beat her, I think, on the first play of the game, and then she responded with 3 straight stops. Now, as someone who might play behind Maya Nagy or may not get as much exposure as Maya does, with Maya going to Arizona, Agara, I think she plays up a grade, if I'm correct.
Yep.
That is going to speak volumes to her confidence and her ability to lead a team where no one else was stepping up. It didn't get a win, but she scored 21. She was making a lot of tough plays down low, hit a 3 as well. And you saw something that you may not always see when she's playing for Hopkins. So that was a game I'm not going to forget for that reason. And then you had 2 sensational semifinals, or I should say a sensational semifinal, and then the championship with Nora Tartan going up against Essence Tip Hayes. And Essence gave them a good run. It looked like Nora Tartan was going to pull away with it, and Essence Tip Hayes worked their way back. And what impresses me about that team, I don't know a whole lot about the out-of-state teams, but they work well as a group. Mm-hmm. It's not just centered on Barker. And with AAU, you get a lot of that because a lot of these kids who play for the tier 1 groups like Fury and North Tartan and Metro Stars with the Hopkins group, Savannah, and then you've got Savannah Jones, Ari Gordon. A lot of them are big names on their high school teams. Now they all come together and you just see the fluidity. But that was the game, the semifinal, where Tessa Johnson blew up, hit a deep 3. Welcome back, Tessa. You remember that. And I know she had to overcome a broken femur to get to that point, but her dad was telling me she was playing at 90%, and I'm going, that did not look like 90 to me.
If that's at 90, that's better
than and so she stepped up because, remember, Mara Braun and Nia Holloway couldn't play because of their state track commitments. So she stepped up in that situation. And then you just had a back and forth duel in the championship round. I'm not going to forget that either, where Hallie Pook, I think, was the difference maker. When she came in, good things usually happened for that all Iowa attack EYBL group. When she was out, they had some more miscues, but you just had so many players stepping up. It felt like a state tournament. And you mentioned that all Iowa attack group has a couple of future Hawkeyes there. It was a lot of fun. So to see that atmosphere, not quite the same as a state tournament, but everyone was surrounding the court to see this North Tartan and all Iowa team play. And just about all the big names had a big play. Something I do as an analyst, I try to find something nice to say about everybody. And that's not because I'm worried about offending people, but that's what you do. It's like, hey, they're there and you look for something. And if it doesn't work out, I'll note that too, but I'm not going to say, oh, they don't belong in this team. Sometimes just have a bad game. But just that game, the ending was marred by clock issues because there were some issues. The operator couldn't stop or start the clock on time, and it just created a mess. So North Tartan had a couple of extra chances they probably shouldn't have had, but
is there WNBA officials that were roughing it?
Well, I think, that's AAU, I guess. Some weird things happen that you normally don't see in the high school circuit, but you just saw a bevy of big plays and 2 teams that were going all out. And that's all you can ask for with arguably the highest division. That I imagine the 17U groups are the ones that get the most attention because that's where you have most of the college commitments by that point. Right. So to see them all come together, that was a lot of fun. I mean, I know you had another thing to get to, but my pulse was rising for that minute of, I think, overtime. We had 2 extra minutes to settle it. And you just saw a lot of great basketball. So I'm never going to forget that summer jam, at least not for a while, because you had so many good games. And on top of that, I know this is a lengthy response, but
all good.
Recency bias for you. Kevin Anderson noted this, and I wanted to add to it as I'm understanding more about AAU, because I hadn't covered any events in 5 years up until this year. In some cases where you have a championship with 2 teams in the same program, they won't play each other. I don't know why that is, but that's for another podcast. In the first championship of the day, it was Lake Harriet, the 14U group. You had the North Tartan 7th Nike team, the 13U play up against the North Tartan 14U Nike group, and they decided to have a Civil War game. And it turned out to be a lot of fun. It was probably the closest, most intense game of the day. And I got to give props to North Tartan for doing that, because there was, I think, a second tier 16U or 17U group where that didn't happen. And I couldn't write up an MVP because they didn't play a game. And it's like, well,
right.
Like there were some good performances I saw out of the all Iowa teams in that White Bear Lake division, the second tier 17U group, but they didn't play a championship. So I have no idea like who's the MVP because there's no winner.
Right, like I have no winner here.
minor nuance, but it was a 50-49 game where the North Tartan 7th group, they were trying to win from the perimeter, and they did a great job with Linnell Wright hitting 6 of 8, and Maya Moore, not to be confused with that other Maya Moore, she was 5 of 5, a perfect 5 of 5, and there was no gimmicks involved. They looked smooth out there, and I'm going, man, we've got a lot of young talent. You were talking to me about some of the youth that have come up, and I think that has been an extension of Minnesota basketball. On the other end, you had a strong kind of all-around performance, a good inside game from Molly Monahan, Tori Schlegel, Brianna Bowman had some nice plays, and you saw a team that responded when Addie Mack, who is probably the most recognizable player from that group, didn't have the greatest performance in terms of offense. But you had two teams go back and forth, and they said, was it awkward? A little bit, but it was a lot of fun. And I got to give props to North Tartan for willing to take on that chance. And they put on a show that I think everyone could appreciate who had a chance to see it. So those, I think I could give you, those are 5 games. And there were a few more, good ones too, but there were 5 games that I'll never forget just because of how intense they were. And it also brought out the benefit of having that straight bracket format all the way through. So there is no second chance. There is no come. And you saw it brought out a lot of intense talent. And I think it made for a great tournament. So the Summer Jam was a lot of fun. And I'm glad I got to include those 5 in my 22 game slate.
I said, side note, if there's a better name to have if you want to be a basketball star, Maya Moore is not a bad one.
And there's another Taylor Hill who plays for Minnesota Stars Desart.
There you go.
Now, for those who, I'll point this out, these two are spelled differently. So the Maya Moore and Taylor Hill that we're talking about spelled differently than the ones you probably think of when you first hear those names. But I'm going, you've got to be kidding me. Like, what? But hey, you know what? There's probably going to be more Mayas and Taylors because of what they've done.
We're waiting for more Lindsays and Nafisas to come through Minnesota now.
Yes. Just don't effing push Nafisa, if you know what I'm talking about. Don't effing push her.
And then, to go off one of the names you said, one of the games that I will always remember, I think we both were able to watch it. It was the state tournament. It was not the prelims. It was the 2024 semifinals.
I was going to say, because we both covered the semis. You covered the championships. I did 3rd place. But yes,
so
semis.
The Minnesota Suns 2024 Blue Star against North Tartan. That game was fantastic because typically what I've learned in my 2 years, which it could be, you have the big name teams, the Fury, the Tartan, Metro Stars, the 2022 Hopkins group. You have those big name teams that are they're almost looked at as like they're always the top, and then it's, unfairly or fairly, it's always looked at as the others. Minnesota Suns had that North Tartan team on the ropes. They are led by Tori Orland, who's playing up 2 years. That class of 2026, if you look at her and Madden Greenway as the top 2 there, that's a heck of a they both are already senior stars as the class of 2026, and they're just getting better. You had her as kind of your physical leader. Like you said, she gets in there. The best part of her is she knows, hey, things aren't going well. I can drive in and get free throws. I can hit a 3. I can look for teammates. They have I know Piper, I think it's Ingleby. I think that's how it's pronounced. She is long, but hits threes, active. You have Amy Thompson, who's a knockdown 3-point shooter. They just move so well. And I mean, they had Tartan on their heels in terms of they had them down 12. I want to say with like 7 minutes left to go in the game. And everyone's like, is this going to happen here? Because you're so used to Tartan, kind of dominating. And, you've seen a Minnesota Suns team not only just compete with them, they were the better team, I would say, up until probably the last 5 minutes of the game. And then you had probably the best player in the 2024 bracket of the state tournament in Rainey Wilson. I think she's also playing up 1 year, but she's another one. The physicality that she can come at you with, her and Tori when they would go at each other. That's a physical matchup for an 8th and 7th grader to be, and they're able to absorb that contact. It's not like they're wilting underneath the pressure of anything. So that one stood out to me. I mean, Minnesota Suns, they felt like they had a lot of chances towards the end. Like it was just, they couldn't get the big one to drop. And, Tartan really amped up the defense, the pressure, and they were hitting the big shots. That Minnesota Suns team is one to me. If they stay together, because unfortunately with AAU, what I've learned is some kids like to move a lot. If that team stays together, grows together, they could give the Furies and North Tartan teams runs for their money in terms of in the state. They would have a lot of success out of state because they're long, lanky, have shooters, and you have a go-to in Tori. The other one would be the other semifinal. I'm a sucker for whenever Metro Stars 2022 play against Fury top 2022, mostly because I like the contrast in that, where you have Mallory and Lily Meister going against Taylor Woodson and Nunu Agara. But Mallory sorry, I just lost her name for a second. Lily, wow. Lily and Mallory, they are more perimeter type posts at times. They can pull you out, especially Lily. She can hit the three. She's long. She likes that free throw line jumper. And they both can play with the back to their basket, which they sometimes their fluidity catches people, that caught Nunu and Taylor, who kind of want to be more physical. They want to overpower you. They want to out athletic you. But sometimes if you jump at everything, or if you go running past them, they have the pump fake. They have the wherewithal to just calm down, take a breath, and we're going to get an open shot. So it was fun to see those two go at each other. It's always fun to watch Amaya Battle play. She's just she's just a joy to watch in general, watch play the game. And then, on that thing in the championship game of the 17 for the state tournament, I said it multiple times. I said Mara Brown was not losing that 17U state championship. There was no one that was going to take it away from her. I mean, don't get me wrong. Fury gave them a good effort. You had Mallory still going. Mallory versus Nia Holloway was still a fantastic matchup. I like watching former teammates go against each other because I'm like, they're going to really enjoy not having to block each other the whole game.
I have good friends with a few of the future golfers, and they've already been talking about how much fun they're going to have. When Amaya committed, I think after the Summer Jam wrapped up, it was when she said, I'm going to Minnesota. I'm like, okay. And I do want to concur with what you said. She was amazing at the summer kickoff and, didn't shoot all that well in the quarterfinals of Summer Jam, but I've said the combination that she brings, the vertical that lets her pull up and hit jumpers that others can't, get rebounds. And she's always looking to make another moment, so she never gets caught up in any moment because she wants to make the next one. And I think that we've joked, and I'm friends with a few of the Hopkins alumni, we've joked that Maya Naji would be two of the names we would talk about more if it wasn't for Paige. if Paige Beckers weren't around, you probably would get more attention to some of these other athletes. But like you said, Amaya is always fun to watch, and what she is doing and how she brings that all around flair, I think you don't see that often. A lot of players usually specialize in one thing or the other, but like you said, I think they're all looking forward to playing alongside each other, because if you think about it, you've got 3 commits from the Lake Conference and then Mallory Hire. I'm pretty sure they're tired of beating each other up.
Section games, state tournament games, they're tired of it. And going back to Amaya real quick, the thing that always stood out to me, and even as you're watching it, and you usually can tell body language and stuff, she can go from a dead stance of like holding to where a player thinks they have a pass over their head, and she just like reaches up. It looks effortless. She just grabs it. She has a steal. Boom, she's running it down your throat and gets a layup or an and one. I'm like, and you're not even like, you go from like this. I'm like, you're not even seeing as a fan. You're like, you're not even realizing she's going to leap until she's up in the air. And I'm like, goodness sakes. I mean, she's getting blocks on centers. Her versus Mara, I've always loved that. I went to the Hopkins versus Wayzata game, and it's just guard on guard. And sometimes I'm like, just spread out. Like, let's do one-on-one here. Like, let's see how this goes. And I said, so she's a lot of fun. I said, all those high-level kids, always fun. I concur with you say with FBC. Najee is a fantastic inside-outside post. I think she's going to fit in fantastic at Arizona. She's going to give them a 6'4" three-point shooting player, which that's a premium in terms of college basketball, WNBA, high school. That's huge. And even on that team, you kind of have another. I don't know if under the radar is the right question. I know she's starting to get some offers. I've seen, Wisconsin offered her, and Savannah White from De La Salle in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So athletic, but she plays. I almost call her like the Candace Parker, the point forward. She can handle it. She can create. She can drive. She can hit the three if she needs to. Long, athletic, can get up for steals, get up for blocks. She's another one that I really like on that team, and her combination with that group, because they have some shooters on the outside there, and Sydney Runsway and things like that. But Savannah is another one that, like, if I know she's another kid that if she's playing, I want to be in that gym watching.
There's another kid on that same team. When you brought up FBC, I'm like, I cannot go any further without mentioning Ronnie Porter. Now, Ronnie's probably her best game in the club season came away from Minnesota. She went to Milwaukee, I think, during the state tournament, dropped 29, and got a courtside films highlight reel and a reel I did for her last year. All of a sudden, people are looking her up to see who is this kid. 5'3", but the way she handles the ball, her quickness, her speed, and her intensity. I think her AAU coach was telling me, Tyler was saying, yeah, we were hoping to get a little more out of Ronnie when they lost to Essence Tip Hayes. But again, you're playing against a team with Janiyah Barker. So that's not going to be an easy assignment. But much like Alexis Pratt for the last few years, I think Ronnie represents the idea that you don't have to be a giant to be a giant athlete. And with what she can do in terms of shooting and passing, I think might fly under the radar. So I don't know how many offers she's getting or what her situation is. Players don't tell me, and I don't want to know, because I'm not really a gossip guy. It's like, hey, this is their journey. I want them to celebrate it. I don't want them to feel pressure, like have all this media attention on them. But Ronnie Porter is another solid addition for that FBC team.
I remember, I think the first time I saw her was, I think we had a junior all-star, kind of that last October, November-ish. We had something at Bloomington where they just kind of kids came and they played together, and she was in that. I said she had a lot of Tamika Johnson. If people remember that old LSU, not old, sorry, the former LSU guard. Not old.
She's older than I am, so, but I know who you're talking about. I had her on my podcast. We had a lot of fun.
Had a little back. Bit of Ronnie's not afraid to go in and rebound. She's also, people think that when you're 5'3" or around that height, you're not going to go into the paint. She has no problem, and she has the float. What you need is those floaters. I mean, we've seen smaller guards be able to do well. I mean, Crystal Dangerfield at 5'5" is reigning rookie of the year. You have itty bitty Morgan Williams from Mississippi State, who hit the one of these shots in the history of women's college basketball. These are not 5'9", 5'10", 5'11", 6 foot plus guards. These are guards who knew they were great at one thing. Shout out to Blake Dudonis, because I remember asking about like smaller guards, like they got to be great at one thing. They have to be great at one thing and then really good at other things. So shout out Blake. And so she was, Ronnie has that high motor. Her 5'3" is not going to matter if no one's getting back, because she's burning them down the court and she's the only one there around the rim. And so I agree with you. And she has the handles. She's going to put on a highlight reel most times when she's playing. I'm excited to see Como Park. I know there was that that issue this high school season. I'm excited to see them get to spread their wings a little bit, play other teams, and then maybe they come state tournament, section tournament time, they're a little more seasoned, a little more ready, and a little more kind of went through the ringer instead of kind of having been hit away and then expected to ramp up instantly.
And I don't know how much you talk about out of state. I know the Junior All-Star Network includes 26 states, but for anyone who might be watching this outside of Minnesota, I do want to note a couple of players from the All Iowa TAC-10 EYBL team. I had a chance to see them a couple of times at the Summer Jam. Ailey Tank, if I'm saying that correctly, is one of them. She is a lights out 3-point shooter. I think she hit 6 of 11 in the quarterfinals to help All Iowa beat Minnesota Stars Hirsch in a comeback. And then in the championship against Wisconsin Flight Elite, she hit 5 of 9. But she is a lights out spot up shooter, and she can work her way inside too, but she loves to sit up behind the perimeter. That is someone where if she gets her groove on, if she finds that stroke, that's it. She's going to rack up a ton of threes before you know it. Another player that stood out to me, Journey Houston, who plays up a grade, if I'm correct, if I remember her social media profile correctly. In that quarterfinal with Minnesota Stars Hirsch, when they were trailing, she came in. I think she started coming in the second half, brought a defensive spark and helped them erase that deficit, work their way back. But she is one of those players that can do a lot without anyone really realizing it. So she'll make the hustle plays, she'll go for the steals, may not score as much as her teammates, but that was another player that stood out where someone asked me who hadn't seen that team, who are the numbers, who should I keep an eye on? And I said, Journey Houston 23, because she's going to do the little things that will help the rest of her team function the way they do. So I just wanted to get that in there for anyone watching this, maybe in Iowa or elsewhere.
Yeah, that's good. I said I haven't seen as many out-of-state ones. I thought I'll give a shout out. This last weekend, I was in St. Cloud for the Great Plains Alliance, hosted by the Minnesota Comments. North Dakota Attack, the 17U 2022s. They had a fantastic post. She was very long and lanky. The first thing I noticed was her height, probably 6'2", 6'3", but just really long. Her name's Rachel Haglin, I should say. And then she ran the court fantastic. One thing I loved is they could throw the ball up to her and it always stayed up. Even on the move, it stayed up so she could lay it in, or she found drop passes. Did a really good job of knowing when doubles were coming. Once again, had the ball up but wouldn't get flustered, and a lot of times just did drop passes down to teammates who were cutting. I said she also, I think I put it in my article, she swatted the shot into the metaphorical 10th row multiple times. Like guards who thought they were going to go in there, she made sure they thought a second about it. And you could even see guards would drive and they'd have the lane, but she was kind of roaming in there. They wanted nothing to do with that. It was a jumper, it was a floater. A couple times it was a turnover because they were in the air and they wanting to throw it. And so she had a really big defensive effect. So I was really impressed with Rachel from North Dakota Attack, ND Attack on social media for them. The other thing I want to give a shout out home, you reminded me with the Great Plains Alliance. I have to give it, I don't know, people know of them, I think more as Becker, and I think the three guards of Maren Westeen, Danny Noose, and Ayla Brown, they're going to be fantastic in high school. Ayla Brown and Danny Noose they're another one of those people that they're just fun to watch. Ayla Brown, I don't know how she does it. She just puts her head down and gets to the basket, and before you know it, it's getting laid in. I mean, she did that at the state tournament. It's just, she makes those big time plays of just driving. And, her and Danny both can hit the threes. Danny's probably more of the 3-point shooter. Ayla's more of the creator off the bounce. But those two, and the reason they stood out to me was the first game they played and they won, I want to say it was 79-15, the game they played. And then they played the North Dakota Attack, but those two were out due to non-COVID, not injury, pre-planned things going on. And I mean, you could tell they missed the ball handling, just the ability to drive. The other team, they played admirably, they gave their effort, but you missed those two guards, the spunk of those two guards. Danny can hit the hot shots, they can get out and they pressure and they force steals. Those are two players. If anyone's looking, if you want to see that Comets 2023 team, Danny News and Ayla Brown, I can't speak highly enough about them. They're all around guards, they're physical guards, and I said you're not going to be disappointed watching a game involving those two.
I saw the Becker duo a few times at the Lake Slam for a day, and then at the state tournament. Lake Slam, they were lapping the field. State tournament, a different story, but I think the degree of difficulty was a little higher. But no, you're right. And Martin West team playing with the North Tartan 16U team, if I'm correct.
16U, yep.
I think I said in my Lake Slam report, I said, for anyone who's wondering what Becker's going to look like with all of the kids are losing to graduation, I've said, yeah, I would be hard pressed to pick someone other than Becker as a favorite to win the 3A title, just from what I'm seeing out of those two. I know Becker did a great job building up their program to the point where they are a perennial contender. And they have been for several years now. It wasn't just a flash in the pan. It started with that group that include Julia Bainson and others. So Ayla Brown and Denny News are continuing that. And yeah, I one of my usually I've joked about the Becker trip that I make because I went up there on a whim when they took on Como Park a couple of years ago. And now that's become an annual thing. But I like watching good basketball, and there's plenty of it at Becker. And those three, I think, will form a strong nucleus. And I imagine that's going to feed into some of the younger kids who have grown up, and now they'll talk about Becker State Championship. Yes, it came in COVID time, so not everyone could be there. But compared to a year ago where they didn't get to play for it, hey, that's a big deal for that school that you might think about for football, but girls basketball, they're no slouch either. So those two, I'd say, are excellent choices in your report.
And Martin's another one. I mean, the games I've seen for her, I mean, there was, I don't know if it was state, but there was at Bloomington, it might have been state prelims. North Tartan, I mean, they were, I mean, in 2023, 2024, and 2022, all three of those teams, they really hit a hot streak when it came to state prelims and straight tournament. I think they won all three of those 22, 23, 24, if I remember correctly, the state tournament. But there was, I think of the prelims, I mean, versus the 2023 Minnesota Fury, and that include, Kennedy, Abby Schubert, them. Martin was on fire. I mean, we're talking crossovers into step back 3-pointers, and it's nothing but net. There was a time she had two of them on her, and she's falling to the side, fading to the side, looking like Rachel Bannum out there and hitting these. And it was, I think she had 17 of her team's 25 at half, and they were up at least 10. And I mean, she had outscored the other team herself. And so Martin's another one of those highlight reel plays, going to hit the three. I like the swag because I'll say she's one of the first ones that remind me a little bit of the Diana Taurasi in terms of she may knock you down, but she'll smile while she does it. So she kind of has that physicality to her. So I like that. Like that, a little bit of Taurasi, like I'm going to knock you down, but smile while I do it. So I look like I'm having a good time. So Martin's another one I would suggest getting out and seeing. Minnesota, our guards. I mean, I know we have some fantastic posts. You look at Najee, Mallory, Nia Holloway, Emma Dosovich coming up at Minnetonka. But I mean, we have the guards we have. If you're a D1 coach, D2, D3, looking for your lead guard or point guard or shooting guard or combo guard, whatever you want to call them these days, you can't go wrong going to Minnesota. At every level, we have players that are going to be productive and do a great job. And so to keep on that, well, I guess give me one or two players that you think are maybe under the radar right now or not having a massive AAU season that you think could explode in July.
Well, it's hard to say who might explode in July. We'll see how things shake out. I know a lot of teams are going outside Minnesota to wrap up the last month of club play, but Minnesota Stars Amundsen, they have another athlete, kind of like Journey Houston, in Ashton Safransky. She comes from North Dakota, but she is their defensive stopper. I think in the summer kickoff, there was one game where she had 5 steals, I think, to beat a Minnesota Suns team. So she is somebody that may not blow up the highlight reels in terms of layups or scoring through contact, but she will make a lot of defensive plays for you. That's someone who could make an impression in July. And I'm just going through it. It's hard because I've seen a lot of teams by this point that are poised for that. That is a tough question when you think about maybe some of the lesser known folks. I guess another one, maybe she isn't under the radar. We talked about her a little bit, but Tori McKinney from North Tartan 15U Nike. In the summer kickoff or the summer jam, they didn't win. Well, a lot of teams struggled from the floor in that one. That was really interesting to see so many issues in terms of shooting. I guess sometimes it happens, but McKinney is, to me, is the quickest player on that team, but also just the most active in terms of what she contributes for that group. So in the summer jam, there were a couple of times where she made some key plays. I think in her semifinal, which was, if I remember, it was right before that North Tartan 17U won. They had to settle it in double overtime. I think there was a stretch for a few minutes where neither team could hit their shots all that well. But, McKinney maintains her concentration after she makes a mistake. So she's not one that will get rattled easily, kind of like Olivia Olson. She's agile, quick, and again, will make plays and will grind it out no matter how difficult the circumstances. So that's another player who could be poised for a breakout. I know she plays for the top North Tartan team in the 15U division, but that's someone where maybe you don't talk about her as much. You mentioned Rainey Wilson earlier. McKinney is another player who wouldn't surprise me if she had a dominant performance sometime in July.
I will go with 2, and one of mine is, I'd say, well known for her age group, but it's a younger age group. And then one that I feel is so underrated. I think D2, D1, low D1, you need to start looking at her. I'll start with her. Maria Counts for the Metro Stars.
I've seen her, at Providence, and she and Grace Counts are quite the duo.
Her sister Grace is about, I think, maybe 2 or 3 inches taller, and Grace blocks shots, and she's fantastic. And she had the game-saving block in the semifinals of state. But I remember Maria will always stand out to me at that semifinal at state. She picked up her 4th foul with 16 minutes and 36 seconds left in the game and did not come out and played the rest of the game and did not foul out. There are WNBA players that can't play 5 minutes with 3 fouls without picking up a 4th one, let alone a semifinal game where one more foul, you're out. And we've all seen basketball, one wrong fall, if you're just turned wrong or something. And she was just so smart, and she didn't let it affect her in terms of she still was effective on rebounds. She didn't ever, she made sure not to drive and put somewhere where someone could, grab a charge on her. It was that free throw line jumper where she's almost automatic. She just used her body, held her ground. Every screen was you could see she knew she was set, solid, not taking a risk. And that, I remember, I kept thinking, eventually she's going to have to come out for a minute. You're going to have to buy minutes here. She did not come out another minute, and she did not foul out. And I said, there are D1 college players in Power 5 schools that can't play, that you have a hard enough time keeping on the court if they get 2, let alone if they were playing with 4. And so she's just a very high IQ player, undersized post, but that free throw line jumper is automatic. She's a big, strong player that is going to run the court for you. She's going to get you baskets. And so I think she's underrated in terms of people. I think a lot of times people look at her size, but I'm a fan, and I'm someone who I'm on Camp Maria Counts. I think she could have a massive July. The other one will go to class of 2025. I actually have a game winner of her from the state tournament, Kendall McGee. Because the semifinal games went a little bit over for the 2022, they were taking a little bit. I made it just as she got the ball, and they were in overtime, and it was versus North Tartan 2025. both teams are struggling to score, and Kendall had the ball with 10 seconds. Like, we're running for one, and she was at probably about the logo. So, I mean, if you're talking, I mean, we're talking Rachel Bannum range again. Like, this is within the gym range, and she launched it. And I think I mean, she looked a little bit surprised as we did, but to have the confidence at 2025 to take a deep three to win a 2025 state title, that just screams confidence. I think she had a lot of Adalia McKenzie a little bit in her, like that kind of just power scorer. So I think she's ready to explode in July and going forward. So those would be the two that I would say, you know, kind of buy tickets now if you're going to see them type situation.
I would agree with those. I don't think you could argue against either of them. And to follow up, Kendall McGee, you may know this, will play at Benilde St. Margaret's next year.
That's a combo, isn't it?
And so it's official. I don't mind saying that, because if you go like, yeah, it's official. If you check her social media, it is confirmed. But yeah, it's like Olivia Olson's going to get some help, because the last couple of years has been kind of Olivia at Benilde St. Margaret's, and that's it. But you got Kendall McGee joining the mix, and that was my first thought is, oh, you're going to play alongside Olivia. Oh, that's and then the Count sisters, I got to see them a couple of times before the pandemic shut everything down at Providence. And I've said this about the Count sisters. They're not going to win sprint races compared to some of the other players that we've talked about, but they're gritty. They're hardworking. Like you said, they're smart. To play 16 and a half minutes with 4 fouls, I think that says a lot about IQ and how you can keep yourself in the game. So when you're wondering, is she going to buy any minutes? Didn't need to. She's got it, but that's going to speak highly to her confidence if she runs into that situation again. Now she knows, I can play this long without picking up a fifth. I know how to avoid it. And so if that comes up in Providence or in future AAU games, her team will be ready for that. So.
And I talked to her, Connor, Providence coach
Connor Gates.
He kind of, yep. And when I asked him, I mean, I was asking him, like, you know, and I told him, like, she played 16 minutes. And his response just showed me like that, like, it speaks volumes of her, because he said, I never even thought to take her out. He's like, I knew she was smart. He's like, I knew she was smart enough to not pick up the fifth. She knows how important this is. She knows how important she is. And I said, the thing that was, not only that, when your coach is saying, I'd never even thought to take her out, I knew she was fine. That just speaks so many volumes, that like the trust they have, that I said, there are WNBA players that you cannot trust to stay in a game, because they're going to swing, they're going to make a dumb foul, they're going to, you know, something's going to go wrong somewhere. And I said, so and I said that, and it wasn't like she was timid in these 16 minutes. She was hitting shots, getting rebounds, playing defense. I mean, it could have, I mean, yes, your fate's a little bit in officials' hands. I mean, even when you're straight up, sometimes they say body or something, but she did everything right in her part to make it so that she would not get that foul. And so I said, I've been a fan ever since. They have a little sister coming up, Hope, who's a shot blocking machine. I think she had 10 earlier this year in the game for the 2025 Metro Stars team. So the Count sisters they keep on keeping on. So, but I said Maria is one that I said I enjoy watching them all, but I really think Maria is a name to keep track of in this July for sure.
And I think she's a senior this upcoming season, so maybe we'll find out where she ends up soon. But no, that, like I said, they'll what they lack in speed, they make up for in just about everything else. And yes, it's fun to watch, you know, your speedsters or your blazers like Alexis Pratt or Tessa Johnson work their way through, but I can appreciate someone like Maria who will use her smarts to her advantage. And like I said, hopefully you won't need 60 minutes of that, but I think that speaks volumes to her IQ. Like you said, how many players would last that long with 4 fouls? Well, we know someone who can.
I mean, exactly. So that was fun, I said. And then shout out another, I guess we'll go here because I have a couple I would get to. I mean, we've mentioned some of them. Is there any, would you say, like knockdown shooters that you think we should highlight here a little bit that you've seen so far this AAU season?
Well, I mentioned Tank earlier from All Iowa Attack, the 10 team, the 10 EYBL, when you're hitting threes as consistently as she was. And then Yeah, that's a tough question because I've seen so many players, and uh, so many of them are you going to the 3-point line even at an early age. You've got Liddell Wright and Maya Moore, two seventh graders or just finished up seventh grade who are lighting up from 3-point range. So I think there are a lot of kids who would fit that description, depending on the circumstances. And I don't mean that as a cop out. I really don't know because I've seen so many who have stepped up or made shots consistently that it's hard to pick just one.
I mentioned Abby Schubert, who that was probably, I would say, the most pure shooter that I've seen in terms of 3-point shooting with Abby Schubert.
Yep. I remember she had 4 corner triples in the first round game of the summer jam, which I thought was amusing. Like she would set up strictly in the corner, but Kennedy and everyone else, they knew when to feed her. And like you said, just watch it go in.
I mean, and if you're a defender, if Kennedy's coming at you down the lane and Abby's on the corner, who are you gonna let shoot? Because they're probably about equally as effective of going in. So which one are you gonna let beat you there? The other one I would say, a couple more on that same. I think maybe 2023 Fury team. I really, really like Teresa. They call her TK. I'm gonna probably say her last name wrong. Kuetz. That could be wrong. She plays at Mankato West for high school. I love the swag in terms of she has a little Chelsea Gray fallback to her shot, a little fade to it, which makes it harder to defend. And she's a solid 6'6", probably 6'1" before it's all said and done. I just like the little fade back that she has there. And I mean, someone that also, another thing I like about her as a shooter is she also knows when she has a space. And if she doesn't, beautiful pump fake that people are going to bite at because she can hit it. And then she's a mid-range assassin. I said it, but have that little fallback, which really stands out to me. The other one I would say is go back to the 2025 Metro Stars team, Rory Goodard. She's that type of kid. And I've talked to her afterwards and I'm like, you look like you're bored out there sometimes. And she's just cool, calm, and collected. Nothing rattled. She's hit game-winning threes. She's hit threes to put you up 30. She looks equally happy when she does both. So I just kind of like that smoothness. And I mean, I think went to that summer explosion. She had a game where I think she had 6. And I mean, it was just every time the other team made a run, here came Rory and boom, hit a 3, boom, hit a 3. So I said, she's one of the most pure shooters in probably the class of 2025 that's coming up. So those would be the two that I would throw out there in terms of shooters. Well, I think we might have talked people's ears off. I might have talked your ear off. Is there anything you want to wrap up before we wrap this up?
I think I would say July, I think will be a lot of fun with all of the clubs going out of the state. The Metro Stars 2022 group did that already. They went to Atlanta and swept the field, went 4-0, but now you're getting to see them spread out. So I think it will be a fun tune-up for a lot of these kids to go up against some out-of-state clubs to get themselves ready for the next high school season, and just to see some different things. Because I think you mentioned Fury and Metro Stars, for example, they played each other a couple of times. So you've had some of the same matchups play out in state. Well, now that things are opening up and you can go outside the state again more easily, I think we're going to hear a lot about some big name players. I just think looking forward, Mill City's coming up. I know that we'll have some teams, the Minnesota Fury and a few Metro Stars teams are in that group. The Meltdown, I think, is going to be another one in state that will be worth circling. Those will be held in the middle of the week. So if you've been following the club circuit, they're not doing as many weekend tournaments to wrap up July. They're going to be middle of the week. So we'll have to see how that balances out with work schedules. But I think we've seen a lot of big names, as I said before at the start. This AAU beat has given me a crash course on a lot of names to keep an eye on that I might not have heard about elsewhere. And then, I got to see some big name players that I haven't seen in the high school circuit just because there's only one me and so many games, so many teams out there. So it's tough to say what to look for without knowing who's in the field. But I can say if you're looking at Mill City, Wisconsin Flight Elite, they're sending several of their teams over there. So the top Flight Elite groups will be there in UAA. So Macy Donarski, I think, plays on that 10 group. That's someone to keep an eye on. And I'll say this, the Minnesota Fury, Eric, you could have a situation where the top Fury teams might end up playing each other. You've got 3 in the 16U Tier 1 Platinum group. 2023 Premier, 2023 UAA, 2024 UAA. I don't know if they would play each other if that situation plays out, but could you imagine how crazy that would be to have Kennedy Sanders go up against Olivia Olson? I know they're already used to that in Metro West Conference play, but Olson and Vasika going up against Sanders and Schubert, that could be a little surreal, a lot of fun.
You're gonna have quick, shorter, smaller guards, and you're gonna have long, lanky. I'm here for that matchup. Those are all players I can't get enough of when you watch them. Like you said, with Mill City, I'm excited. We're gonna have some out-of-state one. That's gonna be maybe my first foray I can't say the word, into seeing other out-of-state teams. So I'm excited for that. I think you said we also have the Junior All-Star. It's the event, the 28th and 29th. I could be wrong on that. Check on our site for information. That's kind of, for the 25, 26, 27, 28. This is your first time to get in front of us. We can get rankings. We can get stuff like that going. Because we know everyone wants to get on that ranking list. And trust me, we don't do it by ourselves. Me and Mike are not always in charge of ranking. We're not the end all be all voice. So remember that, everyone.
But Mike, I just say what I see, folks.
Right, and I said we can. One thing you said, we're only two. We're 2 people. We're 1 person. We can only see so many games, so we try and get out and see as many as we can. But I said it's a joy to do this. I'm excited. This is my first AAU non-COVID season, so I'm getting used to seeing coaches out there because I was so used to. Last year, everyone had to go out after every game, and I was one of the few media ones that could stay in the arena or stay in the gym and wait for them to come in. So now I'm getting used to people once one game's done, they're all coming to watch a better one. And then I'm getting a little claustrophobic. I'm okay, I have a lot of people around me right now. So it's taking some getting used to. But after the high school season where it was pulling teeth sometimes to get into gyms, I'm perfectly okay at being able to just walk on it. And as a
you should have seen my reaction. It was summer kickoff, the first event without any protocols. And I'm going, wait, there's bleachers, there's concession stand. This is going to take some getting used to. And I didn't have to wear masks. And I was okay with that because, hey, if that's what I had to do to ensure this would go off without a hitch, I will do that. But I feel you there. Wait, I'm not used to, it's after a year of trying to avoid people, now we're just kind of mingling again. I hope it stays that way. I don't want to go back to the COVID era. I will say it is nice that I don't have to lug around my own chair. I had to do that in the first few events, and I had some sore arms, so trying to figure out where do I place my chair. I don't have to worry about that now. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it. Again, it's a crash course, and one of my fellow coaching friends said, what's nice about what you and I do is with AAU, you get to meet with the people who are serious about the sport. Mm-hmm. And there are some good multi-sport athletes who play basketball and maybe go on to do other things. That's fine too. But with AAU, everyone there, they all want to make a name for themselves playing basketball. So you never have to worry about kids that aren't going to put in their best effort. So that's what I enjoy most about it. And like I said, what I enjoy about AAU. It's not as glamorous as winning a state tournament in high school. You don't get the headlines, but you get to see players from several schools mix it up. So, we talk about North Tartan and Fury throughout this broadcast. A lot of the top teams or top players from their respective schools come together and mix it up. And it's kind of fun. You get to see something different. And I think you get to see how well players can operate within that dynamic, because Olson, for example, she's easily the best player on Benilde St. Margaret's, but they don't have a lot of support yet. Kendall McGee, I think, will help.
Right.
and then some. So now you get to see how she operates when you put some other players that are equal to her skill set Katie Vasika comes to mind. Like you said, they're the long, lanky, quick versions of Kennedy Sanders and Abby Schubert, but you see how well they operate together. And I think it says a lot on what having good teammates can do. So it's a lot of fun, and I can't wait. I don't know how many events I'll be working, and that's fine. I'm not worried about that. But however many I'm called up for, I can't wait to get to see a few more of these matchups. And I know you're looking forward to seeing some of the Wisconsin teams at Mill City. And from what I saw, if the Summer Gem's any indication, Eric, I think you'll be in for a show. Those Wisconsin teams have some strong players in their ranks. That 10 team, we mentioned Macy Donarski. I'm having a tough time with some of these names, but another one to keep an eye on. And Tianique Austin, she was a force down low in the one game I covered. So you're going to get some good border battle games. I'll give you that much.
I can't wait. My only hope is that air conditioner they're working.
I hope so. It's at Chanhassen, so I'd like to think they're working.
The only snag has been that one day at Shakopee when the air conditioners weren't working. So shout out to Chris Braun for letting me know that there was a Target up the road, because it was warm in that.
Oh, my brother lives in Shakopee, so I'm familiar with that area. So I know of some places that you could retreat if that happens again. But no, I hope the AC is working at Chanhassen.
Let's hope so. But Mike, once again, thank you so much for doing this. We may have you back because, hey, we like to talk. Sometimes we get people on here that are not very talkative. I'm not happy.
I am the opposite of that. I will talk your ears off and then some. So you never have to worry about running out of material with me.
That's what we like. Like I said, this will be up. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you at Mill City. We'll see you out there in the AAU. Any questions? I'm Eric, Junior All-Star. And Mike, where can they find you one more time?
They can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the Mike Peden, and I am accessible. So if you want to send a DM, if you have any questions, I know I've done some other work with parents and players. My lines are always open, and I'm just happy to share these stories. So I can't wait to share more.
Sounds great. Thank you. Have a great one, Mike.
Thanks, you too.